Now it's recording. All right, it's recording. All right, so I'm going to put this on my YouTube. So people were requesting this yesterday. So your wish is my command, guys. I got you. All right, so this live aligns with the current CompTIA A Core 2. That's the 1202 exam. Security represents 28% of Core 2, making it one of the most important exam domains. The official objectives specifically include security controls, malware, social engineering, threats, vulnerabilities, wireless security, browser security, and data protection. All right. You guys like seeing some of the notes that I make together. So someone can have the best antivirus, the strongest firewall, and the newest computer, and still get hacked because of one convincing phone call. Forgot password and don't have access to the number or email I used to create the account with. Oof, that's tough. What is it, Gmail? Today we'll spend, hopefully not 2 hours, but a good amount of time covering the security and social engineering that you need for the CompTIA A+ exam. So type A+ in the chat if this is what you're studying. Type security if security is the domain. Snapchat and Gmail. Type security. I'll look up some more information for you. This is my email. Send me exactly what's wrong here. That's my email. So information security. Information security is the protection of computers, accounts, network, and information against authorized access, modification, destruction, and disclosure. Actually, you know what? Let's stop here. I want to ask you guys a question. Now that we got 5 people here, I'm going to give you a scenario and I want you to answer the question in the chat. This is based on a true story, right? You have Security Plus was my first cert. You already have Security Plus, or are you thinking about it? Don't do Security Plus first. I don't recommend that. Here's the question that I'm going to ask you. You're a help desk tech. You get an email at 10 o'clock in the morning saying, please delete Joe Smith at 2 p.m. I'm sorry. Please remove Joe Smith from all systems at 2 p.m. Right? Joe Smith is your best friend. Right? He's your best friend. He got you the job. Right? He's your ride and die, as the kids say. Right? He's, or Jane Smith, right? If you're a girl, Jane Smith. Right? Jane Smith is your ride and die. Jane or Joe Smith. She held your hair when you were in the club and you were vomiting. Right? Right, homie. Your homie, right? Would you tell Jane or Joe Smith that they're being fired at 2 o'clock? Would you tell them yes or no? Type that on the chat. Would you tell them yes or no that they're being fired? Right, here's the scenario again. You got an email at 10 o'clock saying, please remove Joe or Jane Smith from all systems at 2 p.m. But they're your best friend. Do you tell them? Would you tell them yes or no that they're being fired? See, Jack is a good man. Jack is a good friend. Jack, I want to be friends. We should be best friends, Jack. Luna says no. Luna says that Jane's gotta go. Right? I don't know. The Q starts with QN. Yes, bye, Jane. Get out. Turbulence. Tell them a little early. Why not? Turbulence. That's it. You're turbulence. You're a good person. Jack is just trolling. Jack says he's just trolling. From a security aspect, heck no. But you gotta pick a lane. Turbulence. Right? Are you saying it or you're not saying it? This is based on a true story. This question is based on a true story. I'm going to tell you the story. Alright, so we got some people, most of you guys decide that you won't tell them. So this is a true story. They sent an email saying, and make sure you hit that like button, guys, because you know my goal. I have to reach a certain goal every day, right? They sent an email that to delete Michael at a certain time, right? And some guy went to Michael. They didn't say he was fired. They said, please remove at 2 o'clock. Please remove Michael from all systems. Usually when they send that usually when they fire somebody, it's like, please delete immediately, right? But they didn't. They just said, oh, please remove Michael from all systems at 2 p.m. Hit that like button, guys. And this guy went up to Michael and said, Michael, good luck. Shook his hand and said, Michael, good luck. And Michael said, good luck for what? Right? And then the guy was like, oh my God, like I guess he realized that he messed up. And he said, oh, I'm sorry, it's the other Michael. I'm sorry. Because for some reason there weren't a lot of Michaels there. So when the guy went in at 2 o'clock to be fired, what do you think the first thing that came out of his mouth? Oh, that's why so-and-so told me, good luck. That's the first thing out of his mouth. Right? And then that was to the COO, the Chief Operating Officer. She went ballistic. She started sending emails. She started, and it all was like, oh my God, that this is, the CTO started sending emails. You guys can't be doing that, right? Here's my take. You never know how the person's going to react if you tell them that they're going to get fired, right? What if they have, a wife, 3 kids, a mortgage, they're up to here in debt, and you tell them that they fired, and they have to sit there for 4 hours stewing, right? Getting mad that they're gonna get fired. Anything can happen. They can start breaking stuff. They can start deleting stuff, right? They could hurt somebody, right? So you got to be careful. You cannot tell someone that they're gonna get fired. Yeah, some people snap. You never know, right? You're under a lot of pressure. You under a lot of pressure. Yeah, they can do ransomware. They can do a lot of stuff. So you have to be careful. You really, really have to be careful. So please don't say anything. And they might fire you. They might fire you. That's part of this, right? The CIA triage. Confidentiality. Information is only accessible to authorized people. Example. Usually why security escorts them from the building. Yeah. Examples, or somebody from the office. I had a guy who sent an email to the whole department expressing himself in a very unsuspecting. Yeah. There was somebody got fired, and for whatever reason they would still go into the email, and they send like this long-winded email, just like trashing people. And and then HR sends out an email saying, "Please don't read that email." I'm like, when you send an email like that, what are you gonna do? You're gonna read the email, right? So, yeah. So that's yeah. See, I kind of want to do like something like a scam thing. I have a book, but I kind of want to do one of these TikTok live about scamming. But I get the feeling not a lot of older people go on this platform. I have to do it on Facebook, but it's so hard to it's very easy to meet people. People are following stuff. Facebook is so hard to do that, I think. All right, so confidentiality, encrypting a laptop. He called the guy, in the email, it was crazy, Encrypting a laptop, requiring password, limiting access to medical records, using privacy screens. Integrity, information remains accurate and is not changed without authorization. Examples, hashing a download file, using digital signatures, restricting who can edit payroll records, and monitoring files for unauthorized changes. And availability, authorized users who can access the system when information is needed, right? Maintaining backups, using redundant servers, protecting against denial of service attacks, and installing a UPS, right? If the question, and here's an exam tip, if the question says prevent unauthorized people from reading data, think confidentiality. If it says determine whether a file was altered, think integrity. Would it be man in the middle attack? Yes. Keeping the system operating, think availability. Right? Which part of the CIA triage is primarily protected by backup? Is availability. By the way, if you are in charge of the backup, you better make sure that your backups are working all the time. Because this will get you fired. The inability to make correct backups. I've seen people get fired for this. Or almost fired. Right? Because you never know when your server's going to crash, right? Or your hard drive's going to crash, right? If you don't have good backups, you're going to get fired. It's just that simple. So, alright, physical security. Physical security prevents unauthorized physical access to equipment, buildings, rooms, and information. What people don't understand is that part of security is like having access to people coming in and out of the building. Right? True. So should have automation have like database backup frequency and stuff. Yeah. People forget about the infrastructure, right? How good is your security? Right? Your security could be top notch. Nobody can break into your network. But if you leave the door open, right? What good is that? So security not only involves protecting the network, it involves the infrastructure and the ability to let people in and out of the server room. Right? Access control vestibule is a small area with two control doors. The second door does not open until the first door closes, and that person is authenticated. It is commonly called a man trap. Where do we see this at? That's why you don't make backdoors. Yeah. Backdoors used to be popular in the 80s, not anymore. Where do you usually see man traps or access control vestibules? I'll give you a hint. It's one place that nobody wants to be. Where they have these man traps. Where do they have these man traps? That is correct. In jail. Prison. They have these man traps. Right? One door opens, you walk in, that door closes behind you, and then the next door opens. Right? Example, employee scans a badge to enter the first door closes behind the employee then uses the fingerprint scanner before the second door opens. If the question describes two doors designed to prevent several people from entering together, choose access control vestibule. A badge reader, right, verifies something the person's possessions. Right, you tap your ID card against the reader to enter the server room. Banks too. Where do banks have that? I wonder. In the back? Biometric scanner. Biometrics verifies the physical characteristics of the user. Example, fingerprints, facial recognition, retina or iris scan, voice recognition. In Puerto Rico, all entrances. In the banks in Puerto Rico? You in Puerto Rico? What part of Puerto Rico? Biometrics are something that you are, right? And it's very hard to duplicate. A security guard can verify identity, observe suspicious behavior, respond to incidents, and prevent unauthorized entrance. Bayamon. Nice. But a security guard what? Needs breaks, he needs to go to the bathroom, he needs to eat lunch, falls asleep. Right? So there are ways around, he could see you running, right? And say, hey, I saw a person with a red hat and black pants. But it could not be you, it could be somebody else. How long have you been working in cyber? I've been working in IT. Well, I've been working in IT since 1990. Bollards are those posts that they put in front of buildings. You ever seen those? To prevent the vehicles from crashing into entry. You ever seen those? I can show you an example. Maybe 99% sure. Signal cannot have power. Discovery strategies. But don't waste your time with electro. What? I don't know what that means. I don't think stuff applies to cyber since it's physical. Yeah, it does. It does apply to cyber. Physical is a big part of it. Let me block this account. I don't know what just keep saying the same thing over. Yeah, no. It's a big part. The physical stuff is a big part of security. You know, you have to. That's part of it because it's the easiest to break into. Yeah, right. Like I said before. What if you have everything is locked down in your network, but you leave the doors open? Right? Anybody can walk in. Why? You have to think. When you think of security, you got to think of physical security also. Like I worked in a place for a long time, and they brought in a CISO, Certified Information Security Officer. First time they ever had it, right? And he went around and started restricting access, even for the server room, for people who were working there for many, many years. So these are the bollards, right? They have these in front of buildings, right? They prevent the cars from ramming into it. So if you're working in high sensitive areas, you want these things. Alright, locks. Examples include door locks, server locks, cable locks for laptop, and locking cabinets. You also, if there's a lot of doors to get into, to get to the place, to get to the server room, or to get to high security place, you want to put different type of locks, right? Because if they could pick through one lock, you don't want that same lock to be the second lock or the third lock, right? Because it's easy for them to pick the second lock and the third lock. So you kind of want to make it different locks as you go in. Security cameras. Cameras provide deterrence, monitoring, and evidence. The camera never lies, right? Unlike the security guard who may misidentify you, the camera does not. If it's Josh, it's Josh, right? We know it's Josh. We see him on the camera. He cannot say. He could say it's him, but the camera will say no, that's you, and they don't need breaks. These are normally considered detective controls because they can help detect or record an incident. Alarm systems, they notify personnel when an unauthorized access, fire, motion, or other dangerous condition is detected. A privacy screen limits the viewing angle of a monitor, right? Which you should have. Hospitals use privacy screens so people walking past them can read the patient information, which is a HIPAA violation. But you got to be careful, guys. Nowadays, there are people who are reading your phone, right? Yes. So this guy from Bayamon, he laughs. He says, I use that on my phone. Yeah, you kind of have to nowadays, right? Did you guys hear the story about the guy who got fired because he was texting with his coworker on the phone about the lady who was sitting next to him on a plane? Right? There was a guy on a plane, and the lady sat next to him on the plane, and he started typing to his coworker bad things about the lady. Right? The lady was overweight. The lady, oh, she probably smells, blah blah, all this stuff. Oh, I'm sitting next to this big lady. I'm gonna be uncomfortable. She's probably wants to eat my lunch. Like just stupid stuff he was saying on his text. He was texting his coworker. He was texting his friend. She took a picture of what he was writing, right? And then she posted it online. Not only did he get fired, but they found out who the guy he was texting, and that guy got fired. Isn't that crazy? Because the guy had his name on top. And they found out that him and the guy worked together because they looked up the company directory. Like, let's say the guy was named Mike K, right? So they saw a guy named Michael K, and they exposed both of them, and they both got fired. They both got fired. Yeah, like somebody says, cooked in real time. That is correct. Cooked in 4K. Yeah, so be careful what you write. Do what this guy does. This is security. We're doing security for the A+ exam. We're doing the different topics on security for the CompTIA A+ exam. All right, physical security question. A company wants to prevent a laptop from being removed from a public reception desk. What is the best solution? Yes, knowing this will help for the exam. So a company wants to prevent a laptop from being removed, right? This is easy, right? There you go. The answer is B, cable lock. That is correct. Authentication and account security. Authentication is the process of providing a user's identity. Authentication factors is something that you know, right? Password, PIN, passphrase, security question. Your username and password is not multi-factor, right? It's not considered multi-factor. Something that you have, example, smartphones, security tokens, smart card, hardware key, digital key. Something that you are. Example, fingerprint, face, voice, iris, pattern. Somewhere where you're at, authentication based on location. Example, an organization only permits an administrator to log in inside the company network. And then something that you do or behavioral characteristics, examples, typing rhythm, signature movement, the way a person swipes. Would RF cards fall under the halves? Yes. Multi-factor authentication. This is interesting, guys. Multi-factor authentication uses at least 2 different authentication factor categories. Here's a question for you. How long do you think multi-factor authentication has been around? Obviously, it is new now, right? And it's something that everybody should be using. Everybody should be using multi-factor authentication. All right. How long do you think multi-factor authentication has been around? So we got somebody that says 15 years, somebody that says 20 years, somebody else says 20 years. How long? How long do you think multi-factor authentication has been around? How long you think? We're asking how long multi-factor has been around, multi-factor authentication. Thought started around 09, I say, you think? You're only thinking about PCs. I'm thinking in general. In general, how long multi-factor authentication has been around? Because I can give you one thing that is multi-factor that's been around for 40 years. Social security numbers on the phone, how is that multi-factor? Cards, like cards to, that's only something that you have. Right? Tokens, like computer tokens. Credit cards, how is credit cards multi-factor? Credit cards is something that you have. Right? ATM cards, PIN plus the card. That is absolutely correct. ATMs. That's it. It's ATMs. Very good, 2%. ATMs have been around for how long? ATMs have been around for at least the 80s, right? And they need multi-factor authentication. You need the card, something that you have, and you need the PIN, something that you know. Now the chips, they had ATMs before they had those chips in it. ATMs has been around for a while. So I had an account, I had a bank account in high school. So that was in the 80s. Don't say anything. Right? So yeah, so it's been around a long time. I love telling my students that, that it's been around for a long time. So multi-factor authentication uses 2 different authentication factor categories. Valid multi-factor is some password with is something you know, and your fingerprint something that you are. That is a valid multi-factor authentication. Not valid password and PIN. Those things are something that you know. So this is a two-step authentication, but not a true multi-factor authentication. What about the presidential football? I have no idea. I'm sure it has. I think with that you have to do like a key, and you have to break something. So it's something that you know and something that you have. So yeah, I'm guessing it's multi-factor. So phones work for multi-factor because it's a phone and your PIN. Yeah, but you're only entering the PIN. You're not really, right? Like emails. So if somebody logs into your email and you put in your password, right? That's something that you know. And then they tell you open up you gotta go into your YouTube and hit yes. That's multi-factor, right? Or you put in your password to your bank account, and then they send you, then you have to wait for a PIN. So that's two things. All right, passwordless authentication allows someone to sign in without entering a traditional password. Right? They have pass keys now, facial recognition, fingerprint, hardware security key, authentication approval, like the Authentication app. Right? Are you guys using Password Manager? Anybody using a Password Manager? I'm not a fan of Password Manager, but I just want to know if anybody's using it. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not 100%. I think LastPass got hacked one time. Yeah, risk too high. Yeah, I feel that same way also. Right? All right. Single sign-on allows users to authenticate once and access several approved applications. Benefits: it reduces the number of passwords employees must remember, but the risk is if the main account is compromised, the attacker may gain access to several connected servers. Self-hosted password manager with free VPN, that's the way to go. Okay, I'll look into that. So the single sign-on, I'm a little bit of a fan, or if the database gets hacked, right? So the one thing about single sign-on, you know, like me working at different schools, I once worked at Lincoln Tech where you had to where you logged into the computer and you didn't have to log into anything else, which was beautiful. The email opened up, you know, what did they use? I think they used Canvas. Canvas opened up, right? Everything opened up as soon as you logged in. I worked at one school where the computer login and password is different. Bryce or Blackboard, when they used it, username and password was different, and your email username and password was different. It was all different. You know how confusing was that? That was, and then I'd teach there for one semester, and then the following semester I wouldn't teach there, and then I'd teach there again the semester after that, and I come in after we set. I have to go to help desk and reset all my passwords because I don't remember what they were. So that's the bad side. So account policies, important. Account protections include the password length. Anybody know what the government is asking for nowadays for password length? Usually the government is the standard that we go by. Anybody know what the government is asking? How long the password should be? Yeah, it's 16. It's 16. Yeah, very good. Before it was 12. Not too long ago it was 12. Yeah. Yep, it's 16. It used to be 12 before, but it's now 16. Yeah, very good. They wanted password complexity, which means what? CIS says 14, which is interesting. Yeah. With the new encryption, 16 is needed. Yeah. Password complexity means exclamation points, letters, numbers, right? Yep. Special characters should be used. Yep. Password history, right? You want to be able to disable people from using the same password, right? I remember Windows had to put this is the early 2000s, had to put a password history box, because what, not password history, so they had to do minimum password duration in Windows. Because what people were doing is, when you change your password, right, you were changing your password every 90 days. What people were doing is they would change their password, and then they would change it again to go back to the old password that they just changed it from. So Windows had to introduce password duration, which you set the minimum, that once the person changed their password, what is the minimum amount of time that they have to keep that password, with the minimum being 30 days. So I don't think so, because this was years ago that they did that, like 20 years ago. An account lockout threshold. Account lockout is you go in there, you try 3 times, the password doesn't work, it locks your account. That's what local admin password solution helps to fix for password rotation. Yeah. So, and then log time restrictions. You like banks. Somebody said banks before. I mentioned banks. Banks have a login time where you can only log in between a certain amount of time, right? So let's say you log in, they don't let you log in at 8 a.m. and you get there at 7:30, you can't log in. And they do that for security purposes. And then I think they log you out at 7 p.m. automatic. So if you're not done with your work by 7, the bank logs you out automatically. I mean, I haven't, but I could. Yeah. So, account expiration, and then disabling unused accounts. This is a big one, right? If you don't, if they fire you, right? Yahoo, right? If they fire you, right? He leaves. Why you still have his account there? Right? Minimum is disabled. That's at least the minimum. Realistically, you should be deleting his account as he's walking out the door. Right? Or he says, my last day is today at 3 o'clock. 3:05, his account should be deleted. Right? Like, unless he's an important person, no one's going to want to read his password, his email. Right? Sometimes they read your, they say, oh, can you leave it? Can you give me access to his email for a couple of days? I want to go through it, and I may need to pull out some stuff. But for the most part, we're not that important that people need to read our emails. Right? I did have a guy who I worked with, and he was in the company for like 10 years. He left. He got another job. Right? Got the other job. I deleted him. That's the rule. That's in the policy. Right? Somebody leaves, you delete him. So I deleted him. He hated the new job that he was at. So I think he quit in August of, I don't even know what year, but it was in August that he quit. Christmas party comes around. I see him at the Christmas party. I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? He goes, I'm trying to come back. He goes, I hate my job. I hate my new job. I'm trying to come back. So he was at the Christmas party to see if they would, bring him back. Eventually, a couple of months later, he did come back. I recreated his account. He comes to me. He goes, hey, what happened to all my emails? I'm like, my friend, you left. We deleted your emails. We don't save why would we save your emails if you're not here? He goes, wow, I was here for a long time. I had a lot of emails. I'm like, yeah, but you left. So we deleted it. I said, that's company policy. So, is a password and PIN a true multi-factor authentication? No, they both belong to the something that you know category. He should have had he should have had it, no one's going to back up his stuff. By the way, he wasn't that important. Right? He wasn't that important. Permission and least privilege. Authorization. Authentication proves who you are. Authorization determines what you're allowed to access. Easy memory trick. Authentication, who are you? And authorization is what can you do. Principle of least privilege. You're going to see this a lot. This is something that you should remember. Principle of least privilege is in every CompTIA exam. It's in A+, it's in Network+, it's in Security+. It's like CYA, CYSA+, it's in Penetration+. The principle of least privilege is something that you should know. Users should only receive permission required to perform their job. Nothing more, nothing less. That's important for me to learn because I play with Linux a lot. Yeah. It's like, you ever see the Liberty thing? You only pay for what you need. You only get what you need for principles of least privilege. Here's an example. You are, and the problem that I used to run with principle of least privilege is from managers, right? Who don't know what privilege to give their employees. So I'm going to give you an example of how I used to run into these problems and how I kind of resolved it, right? So we got, who do you have here? We got Yago and Luna. So Yago's the manager, right? And he works in HR. So he in payroll. So he says, so Luna's a new employee. So he sends an email, right? He's in payroll. Oh, we have a new employee named Luna. She's starting in on Monday. Sends it to HR. HR sends it to help desk. We create the account, right? I sent out an email saying, hey, Hugo, what groups do you want Luna to be in? And groups is what gives you a lot of the rights, right? Depending on the group that you're in, you're going to get access to different things, right? And you tell me, make her the same as Mike. So I go to Mike's groups, I copy what Mike has to Luna. But little did the manager knows that Mike has this one special access, right? Yeah, that only Mike should have. Now Luna has it. A week or two goes by, I get a nasty email. Why did you give Luna access to this? Right? And then they say, and then I say, you told me to make him like Mike. Oh, that's not what I meant. And because you are the tech, you supposedly know better. So I would get the hit. Right? I would get the hit for that. I'm the one who would get yelled at. I'm the one who gets to sit down. Yeah. And say, oh, why did you give somebody this right? So what I started doing was, I would, when they tell me, oh, make him like Mike, I would screenshot all the rights that Mike has and send it to the manager and say, please let me know if you want to remove or add anything before I add these groups to Luna. And then they will come back and say, oh, remove, don't give her this, don't give her this, right? Every now and then I get somebody that says, oh, no, it's the same. And then they come back and say, why did you give Luna rights to this? And then usually when that happens, they send that ticket, they'll send another ticket. A manager will take that ticket and investigate like why I did it, right? But then they will look into the trail and they would say, they would go back and they would say, hey, he asked you on this day, here's all the groups, which one you want to change, and you told them to leave them the same. So yeah, so the person who told them was you. So I had to come up with a system, right, for I don't get blamed for something that they were doing, because I was taking the hit for that because of least privilege, because they didn't know what permissions to give their employees. So a receptionist needs permission to schedule appointment, but she doesn't need permission to view employee payrolls, right? So exam scenario, a user needs to install one approved application. The technician should not permanently place the user In the administrative group, instead, the computer should use authorized administrator credentials for that specific task. Standard users versus, yeah. I've gotten elevated privileges one time to see people's reviews, and they have the reviews, and then at the bottom of it they have the new pay. In the review, when you get your review on the bottom in this company, it will tell you on the bottom, like, if you got a raise and how much money you're going to make now per year. And I had to tell them, look, I have access to this. Why do I have access to this? I shouldn't have access to this. So, standard versus user versus admin. A standard user can run applications and perform regular work, but they cannot make major system changes. So be careful who you give administrative rights to. Administrator can install system-wide software, change security settings, create or remove accounts, modify protected files. Employees should normally use standard accounts for everyday activity. Even your account, the account that you use, that you just come in the morning and log in and check your email and stuff, even that account should not have an administrator account. If you want to install something on the PC, you should be logging in. That box should pop up and say enter the administrative password. So, if they don't know what permissions they need, they don't need them. Yep, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, they should not. You don't need on your desk, right? The desk that you come in in the morning and you log in and you check your emails and you check out this. That account should not be an admin account, right? Just whatever it is that you need the admin account, you use the admin account. But you should not be logging in to your PC, your workstation, with an admin account, unless you're going to install something. User access control, the UAC, displays a prompt when the application attempts to make an administrative change in Windows. UAC helps prevent unauthorized or accidental system changes. File permissions include read, write, execute, modify, and full control. Nobody should have full control, only admins. Permission inheritance, a file or folder may automatically receive permission from its parent folder, so you got to be careful about that. Role-based access control. Role-based access control assigns permission based on job responsibilities. Example, help desk tech, human resources employee, department manager, system admin. Zero trust is something that we talked about before. Zero trust follows the idea of never trust automatically and always verify. A user or device is not automatically trusted merely because it is inside the company's network. Technician gives an employee only the permission required to complete the assigned duties. Which principle is being used? Of course, we know what the answer is, right? What's the answer? Right, technician gives employees only the permission required to complete the assigned task. Right, which principle is being used? The principle of least privilege, B. Malicious and malware and malicious software. So the word malware comes from malicious software, right? Malware is software created to damage, disrupt, spy on, or gain unauthorized access to a system. A virus attaches itself to a legitimate file and normally requires user action to spread. That's the difference between a virus and a worm. In a virus, a user needs to do something. It needs user interaction to spread a virus. So example, user opens an infected document attachment, the malicious code affects other files on the computer. But he had to do something. The user had to do something. He had to open it. So it could give a random app privilege access and it spreads. But see, this is the virus. It only spreads inside the computer, right? A worm can copy itself and spread across the network without attaching itself to another program, right? And, well, I'll read this. Important difference: virus commonly requires a host file and a user action, and a worm can spread automatically through a network. Now, here's something that I'm going to warn everybody about. Years ago, you would get a virus on your computer, right? Everybody kind of didn't take it serious, right? Well, it was taken serious, but not like now, right? They took your computer, they cleaned it, made sure you didn't have a virus, and they gave it back to you. Nowadays, you get a virus in your computer, they want to run a whole investigation on it, right? How you got the virus, what were you doing, what did you click, why did you click that, what was your thinking, didn't you see it, blah, blah. It's a whole thing. It's a whole investigation that you get because of that. So one of the companies that I work for had, they got a virus, and then they wanted to fire the CISO. No, they wanted to write her up. They wanted to write her up for it, and she refused. So they fired her. Because she didn't want to sign that it was her fault that the virus was introduced. Yeah, and it wasn't even in the same office. It was in a remote office that the virus. But somebody had to pay. They wanted somebody to pay. They wanted her to take the hit. So that's crazy, right? It's not even your fault, but it is your fault. Being CISO is like being the manager of the Yankees. Eventually, you're gonna get fired. Now a lot of CISOs end up staying a long time, right? Because something's gonna happen, and when that happens, right? Target. Did you hear about the Target hack like 12 years ago, 13 years ago? Right, Target got hacked because they got hacked around Black Friday, right? And Target had bought FireEye. And if you know anything about FireEye, one, that they detect ransomware or malware in real time. And they're super expensive. FireEye is super expensive. And every time there's a major hack, go to CNN. What do you see there? The CEO of FireEye. He's there talking about the hack and selling his product, right? FireEye alerted them that something was going on in their network, but because it was Black Friday, they ignored it. They just thought it was normal traffic. A couple of days later, again, there's an email that goes out from FireEye saying, "Hey, we detect something funny." Again, for whatever reason, they ignored it, and it was I guess at night, the help desk goes to India, and it was them who sent out the general alarm saying, "Hey, we saw that FireEye saying that we have something going on." Both times they ignored it. The FBI went to Target, that's in December of that year, and said, "Hey, do you guys know you guys are hacked?" So if the FBI has to go to your office and tell you that you've been hacked, right, and you're the chief information security officer, get a box. Get a box, right? And the box is for what? The box is to pack up your stuff that you have there, and then they walk you out, right? The CEO ended up resigning because of that, right? Because this idiot went on TV and said, "We want our customers to come back and have confidence in us and our ability to protect yourself. And this weekend we're offering the employee discount for every shopper that comes into Target." And the reporter asked him, "What is the rate? What is the employee discount that the customers are going to get?" And with a straight face, homeboy said 5%. 5%. Right? Yeah, I hope you're laughing. Because, yeah, I was laughing when I saw that. And I said, this idiot must have gotten fired after that interview. Because, why? Why would you do that? But anyway, I got a lot of less than attacks, yeah. A Trojan appears to be legitimate but contains malicious code. You ever seen a pop-up come up on your computer when you go on those websites that you know you're not supposed to go to? And it gives you a whole long thing like it's scanning your computer. And then it says, hey, we detected 365,000 viruses on your PC. Click here to download this antivirus. But that's not an antivirus that you're downloading. You're downloading malware. That's a Trojan, right? That looks like antivirus. So users downloads what appears to be a free video auditing application, and the application installs backdoor. A Trojan does not normally reproduce itself. Ransomware. This is the one that's very, very popular nowadays. A lot of companies are getting this. Ransomware encrypts or locks data and demands payment. Whether warning signs, files cannot be opened, files extensions suddenly change, a ransom message appears, and shared network files become encrypted. I saw this yesterday on TikTok. Some guy asked, how, if you see that this is happening in real time, what port number do you stop to prevent more damage? No. 80 is unsecure. If you're running unsecure on your network, that's your fault. But if you already see the files being changed, the file extension being changed, yeah, 80 is internet. But I'm saying if you have a website with no protection and they break into that, that's on you. Right? It's SMB. That's the one that you have to stop. Because they're already in. 80 or 443, you wouldn't block that because they're already in. SMB is the one that you have to stop. To stop it, right? Spyware, so you want to stop the exposure, yeah. But what's the number one thing that protects you from ransomware? I mean, it's not going to protect you from getting ransomware, but it will protect your data. What's the number one thing that will protect you from ransomware? Backups. Very good. Yep. Backups. NJCU, a college here in New Jersey, they got ransomware a couple of summers ago. They didn't pay the ransom. They just restored from backup. They had good backup tapes. So the guy said he took the money from the insurance company, from ransomware, updated, brought new servers, new routers, new switches, and then they restored from tape. I think they were down for 3 weeks. While they investigated, somebody came in and they stopped it, but they had good backups. I think they had cloud backups. And then they went and they shut down everything. They replaced the servers, replaced the routers. They decided, like, now that we have this opportunity, let's get brand new equipment. And they took that check from the insurance company that they got, and they went and they replaced all their equipment, and then they restored for backup. Yeah, so yeah, backup is really important. Yeah, you get fired. I'll tell you, you get fired. So spyware secretly collects information about a user. It may collect browsing activities, login information, personal information, application usage. A keylogger records keyboard activities. It may capture password, credit card numbers, private messages, search activities, right? Rootkit, and they have keyboard loggers. They have software key loggers and hardware key loggers. Obviously, software key loggers are easier, right? The hardware ones, you have to break into the office, put it in, get out, and break back in to get it. So the software ones are better, right? All right, this guy knows how to make key loggers. Rootkit hides malicious activity and may provide privileged access to the attacker. A rootkit can be especially difficult to detect and remove. Boot sector virus. A boot sector virus infects the portion of the drive used during startup. The malicious code may execute before the operating system fully loads. Crypto miner. A crypto miner secretly uses a victim's CPU or GPU to generate cryptocurrency. Right, high CPU or GPU usage. Right, slow performance, overheating, loud fans, increased electricity use. Right, Phallus malware. Phallus malware primarily operates in memory and may abuse legitimate system tools such as PowerShell because it may not install traditional executable file. Basic file scanning can have difficulty detecting it. Stalkerware secretly monitors another person's device, location, communication, or activities. Right, those are people who are trying to track you down. Ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, right? PUP, potentially unwanted programs. These are programs that, like, let's say you buy a Dell computer and they put all this crap on it, right? And that's what it could be. PUP is software that's not technically, it's not malware, but it creates bloatware. Yep, but it creates undesirable behaviors, right? Browser toolbars, excessive advertising, home pages changes, bundles applications, right? Tracking software, right? Quickfire. Ask users to identify the malware. Encryption files and demand money is ransomware. Records everything that you type. Keylogger disguises itself as a useful program. That's a Trojan. Spreads independently across network. That's a worm. Secretly uses your GPU to produce digital currency. That's crypto miner, right? Malware removal process. CompTIA questions often test the proper order of malware removal actions. There's actually steps. The good thing about these steps is that they never change. So for the Network Plus and the Security Plus, they're the same steps, right? They're no different than the A Plus. They don't change. So that's the good thing because it scaffolds, right? To use a teaching term, they scaffolds. Step 1, investigate and verify symptoms. Confirm that the malware may actually be present. Look for pop-ups, browser redirects, slow performance, unknown applications, disabled security software, high network activity, change files, right? Step 2, you quarantine the affected system, which means what? Yep, hypotenuse and testing, that's exactly it. Quarantine the affected system, what does that mean? Quarantine infected systems. What does that mean? Yes, disconnected from the network. I always thought that should be the first thing that you do, right? It's disconnected. Disconnect the computer from the network to prevent the threat from spreading or communicating with an attacker. Possible actions: disconnect the Ethernet cable, disable Wi-Fi, disconnect from storage, from shared storage, isolate the endpoint through a management system. Do not immediately shut down a system if doing so will destroy evidence needed for an investigation. Disable system repair when appropriate. What is system repair? System repair is software. So I'll give you an example. If you are about to have a patch installed, right? If you have this turned on, System Restore takes a snapshot of what your computer looks like before the patch is installed. So if you install the patch and something goes wrong, you go back to System Restore and it will put your system back the way it was before the patch was installed, right? It only does software. So if you have files that you deleted, you can't do system restore. It's not going to restore your file. It's not going to do that, right? It only does system stuff. But back in the day, if you got a virus, people do system restore to remove the virus out, right? And you have your computer back, all your files are there, right? But the bad guys got smart. They said, well, you're going to do that. What we're going to do is, when we create a virus, it's going to destroy, it's going to infect all the system restores that you have. So they are useless. They become useless. They're infected. If you go and restore from a system restore point, your computer's still going to be infected. So that's not going to help. So you have to disable it and delete it, actually. Malware may hide in restore points. Follow organizational policies, because disabling system restore can remove existing restore points, which you probably want to get rid of anyway. Remediate the system. Possible actions include updated antivirus and anti-malware tools, scan in safe mode, use a recovery environment, remove the infected files, remove malicious browser extensions, uninstall suspicious apps, and restore from a good known backup. So many having, so it's nice to, yeah. Well, here's the thing. Are you gonna back up everybody's PC? That's the thing, right? Nobody. That's why they have the shared drives. You want to save something that's important, put it in the shared drive. And this is why companies have, for the departments, for each departments, they have what do you call that? A clone machine, right? They have a image of each department. So if you work in marketing, they have an image of what a marketing computer should look like. So re-image or reinstall the operating system if necessary. Then you schedule scans and run updates. After the removal, you update the operating system, you patch the applications, you update your malware definitions, you schedule regular scans, and you enable your endpoint protection. Then the step 6 is you re-enable system restore and create a clean restore point. Create a new good restore point after confirming that the system is clean. And then you educate the user, right? You're probably going to write them up, right? That's probably what's going to happen. You're going to write them up. Explain how the infection probably occurred and how to avoid it. But they're probably going to get written up, most likely. Examples: do not open unexpected attachment, verify links before clicking, install software only from trusted sources, do not disable antivirus warnings, report suspicious activity quickly, right? Education through reprimand. Yeah, listen, that's why they send you those test links. If you work in an office nowadays, they send you those test links and see if anybody clicks on it. And if you click on it, right, you have to attend some kind of webinar on learning not to click certain files. And you click it again, you may have to attend another one. You click it 3 times, guess what? They're firing you. As they should, because your risk. If they send test emails and you keep clicking on them, you are a risk to the company. Why should they keep you? Why? You are the weakest link. That is exactly right. This is why I tell people, and I hate to use the word snitch, right? Because snitch is like, right? It's not a good word. But if you see somebody at work doing something that they're not supposed to, you're supposed to say something as an IT person. You're supposed to say something, right? If I know that Luna's downloading illegal movies at work, I have to say something. Maybe I tell her first, hey, stop doing that. But at some point, I have to tell somebody that she's downloading illegal movies at work. Why? So let's say she downloads a movie and it has a virus on it, and the whole company is infected, and now you have to work Saturdays to clean everybody's PC. Oh, by the way, you were supposed to go to your cousin's wedding. Now you can't go to your cousin's wedding because you're working. Right? You know. Yeah, I know. But listen, you'd be surprised. I had a student who said that he worked at a hospital, and he said the guy who worked with him at night, overnight, was downloading illegal movies, and they fired him for that, for downloading illegal movies at the hospital. So the guy worked overnight. You know, they both worked overnights, and it was boring. So the guy would download movies and watch them while I worked to stay awake. Yeah, not on the network. Yeah, but he was doing it on the network. Bro, people always think you do it once and they don't catch you. You do it again, they don't catch you. You do it. You know what I mean? People do it all the time. So I have a here's a good one story. It's kind of like a two-part. So when Wi-Fi first, two things. When Netflix first came out with streaming, that was a big deal. Right? That was a big deal. So people at work who had Wi-Fi started watching Netflix at work. Well, where I work, we didn't have Wi-Fi. The company was cheap. And they're very, very slow. For a company that liked to promote that they're very tech savvy, they actually were not. Right? We didn't have Wi-Fi. Like, people would come, salespeople would come and say, oh, what's the login for the Wi-Fi? I would say, we don't have Wi-Fi. They were like, you don't? I'm like, no. So, us, the techs, we were on one side of the building. We were on one side of the building, and right across the street was a deli. And the guy at the deli had his router right on the window, on a shelf, right on top. If you go to the deli, you can see it. It's right there. He had no password on his Wi-Fi. We were on the 13th floor, right across the street. Right? And it was if you ever been to New York, like, it's on the same block. Right? It's not like if I'm on 51st and he's on 52nd. No. It was on the same block. Right? He was just across the street. Right? But we were on the 13th floor. He was on the ground floor. And we could connect to his Wi-Fi and watch Netflix. So like November, December, which is usually like the slow months for tech, we used to sit there and just watch. We'd take a laptop, open up the laptop, connect to the deli, and just watch Netflix all day. Because there were no tickets. So, the other side of the country, we had another office. They did not have Wi-Fi, right? They were all like on the 30th floor or something, so they're not going to grab somebody's free Wi-Fi from the deli across the street. So what they decided to do is to band together and buy a wireless router and sneak it into the network and put it underneath the floor, because they had those raised floors. So you can pop up, open the tile, and the floor would open up, and that's where the cables were run underneath. They put the wireless router in there, and they connected it to the network. No, the SSD was not shown, right? Nobody noticed that all the techs brought their laptops from their house to work, and they were watching Netflix. That's how they were watching Netflix. Until they fired one of the guys, and he snitched on everybody. Snitched on the whole group. So, exam question: the text confirms that a workstation is infected. You had the bonus of being attacked. Yeah. A technician confirms that a workstation is infected and connected to the company network. What should the technician do next? What should he do next? What should he do next? Anybody? No? Well, this is an easy one, right? It is B, quarantine the computer, right? He already confirms. So that's step one. He confirmed it. So step two is quarantine. I'm going to stop here. All right, we've been an hour and 20 minutes in this. I don't know if you can do a thumbs up. Thumbs up if you like this lesson. We can do part 2. Maybe we'll do it on Monday. I got like another 15 pages to go. Right? Part 2. You like this? All right? Yes? Yes? Before you go ahead. Anybody like this? If I want to get into this, what cert are you recommending for entry work from home, if possible? Well, you definitely have to get the A+ first. Cap, thank you so much for that. I would definitely do the A+. Sign up, guys, if you want. Like I said, sign up for my 2-hour resource class that I'm doing next Sunday. Not this Sunday, next Sunday. It's right here. Sign up here for the CompTIA resource class on 8/16 with that link. Click on it. I just need your name and your email address. I don't need your phone number. And then just put like CompTIA A+. Right? Sign up on that. And then on August 16th, I'll send you the link, a Zoom link. We'll do the 2-hour resource class together. Right? We'll do questions. We'll go over the exam. You can tell me what issues that you're having, what is it you want to do, what's your goal, right? What's your why, right? Because that's important. There's a reason why we're doing this, right? There's a reason why some of you stood an hour and 22 minutes in this TikTok live. There's that why. I want to know what that why is, right? That's, and then that's the why that's going to keep you motivated, right? That's the why that's going to get you to pass this exam if you want to take it. So you got to always remember your why, right? Because your why is what's going to take you when you are down, when you're low, when you don't want to study, right? When you're just like not feeling it. Your why is going to motivate you. When I did my doctorate, I wanted to quit so many times. I wanted to quit when the teacher told me that by my writing, he could tell that English was in my first language. Right? When he told me that. One of my teachers told me that. Well, I can tell by your writing that English is not your first language that you learned. Of course not, it was Spanish. Right? But I had my why. Right? I had my why. And I was able to get over the hump with that. I use that as motivation. That and the student loan bill that I would have to pay if I didn't finish. So, right, that was my why too. That was my why, right? So, man, if I quit, I'm still gonna owe all this money. So, I better finish. Yeah. So, that's whatever motivation that you have. That's the motivation that you keep. That's your why, and that's what we use. So that's what you want to use to keep you moving. Right? Your why is very important. And only you know what your why is. So whatever the why is, your kids could be your wife, your kids, your family, right? I hate this job, I want to quit and get another job. That's also your why, right? Whatever your why is, that's what you need to hold on to. That's what you need to motivate you, to get you to take this exam, to study and pass this exam. Anybody and everybody here could pass this exam. So all I ask is to let me help you, and we do this as a team. All right, thank you very much, guys. It is almost 3 o'clock. I gotta run, but thank you very much, guys. Have a wonderful weekend. I don't know if I'll do a live this weekend. If I do, it's probably be on scamming. If you're interested in that, if you see me, just know it'll probably be a scamming. But I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you learned something. That's the reason why I'm here. That's the reason why I'm doing it. And I'll see you all on Monday. Have a great weekend.